working and building on Polygon labs. And I mean, at least I don't know about others, but I came to know about Sandeep Nalwal in about, I would say, 7, 8 months before, or I would say maybe a year. Maybe you would have known earlier, or maybe some have would have known m- even sooner. But the name became common, and the people are now aware of Polygon today. Like it's like 7, 8 years into the project, so it takes time. But provided you are at it and you are game for it, so I mean it's an interesting thing. How you put it and how I think the journey is going to be, and it's always evolving. So yeah, keep learning. All right, so we are 8 minutes into the session. Let me just share this leaderboard with all of you. Hey Priyadarshini, very good evening. All right, let me see if there's anything else. All right, so let me just share my screen and show you the leaderboard for today, previous sessions. All right, so we have the top scorers who are basically who have the perfect score. Oops, yeah, and the perfect score is 10 out of 10. So we have Devansh Rastogi, Safura Khan, Pale Dikshita, Koditeala, Sujana, Ramana Govind, and Harish. Guys, kudos to you. Congratulations to you. Getting a perfect 10 out of 10 is hard. So it shows that you have been very attentive during the sessions. There are people who have scored 9, there who have scored 8. Congratulations to all of you, even 7, 5, 6, 8, 0, 1, whatever. If you have attended the poll, it's a big deal. Uh, I, I mean, big deal as in the attempt or the attempt to learn is a big deal. So stay at it. Wherever you are, you will obviously make yourself better, but make sure that you put extra effort in it. If you are lagging a little behind, go back and revise the session. Then, I mean, it's totally up to you how in deep you want to go and test the entire uh, arena for yourself. All right, I see Rishin in in the so Rishin is here in the panel. So before I hand it over to Rishin, let me just let me just welcome all of you once again. So very good evening, people who have joined just now. And before we begin the session, I want to just inform you that at the end of the session, we will have additional time allocated to question and answers for any questions that you might have regarding the technical aspect of this module 2. Any technical questions you want us to address, it could be about coding, it could be about, I don't know, theory, or maybe the next steps of. I wouldn't worry about the next steps, but focus on the very specifics of something that you were trying to build after learning from here and then you were facing some challenge. So focus on those aspects and you can note down your questions and we'll address it at the end of it. So the questions can be regarding this session or previous sessions. It's all totally up to you. So yeah, with that, let me hand it over to Rishin. Hi, Rishin. Thank you so much for joining in once again. I hope you are able to hear him. Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Deepak. I guess you can hear me as well, right?
Yeah, perfect. Your audio is a little on the lower side.
Can you hear me now?
Unfortunately, no.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, till Rishin fixes it. So I have a question from Anjali. You also show the poll scorers who take 8, 9 also. I mean, see, the top scorers are basically not particular names that we are looking for. It's just anybody who's going on the top numbers. So we just put it out in it. But we know who scored 8, 9, 7, whatever, and all of that is taken into consideration while giving the certificates and also the rewards that we're talking about at the end of module 2. And it'll take a little longer time if we go in 8 and 8, 9, and if we reduce the benchmark, because then dozens of students will come in and it'll take unnecessary time. So that's why we avoid it. All right, Rishin, let's just test once again if we are able to hear you.
Yeah, bro. Am I audible right now? Is it?
Unfortunately, very light. The audio is coming off very feeble.
Just a minute. Okay. Okay. What about now, Deepak? Is it okay?
Praveen sir, is it just me or are you able to hear properly? Or what is it?
No, it was little feeble earlier. Rishan, can you say something now?
Yeah, can you hear me right now, sir?
It is still low, but I think can you do better, or you are at your best?
I guess I'm at my
Can
best.
you remove the earphone if you have plugged it in and if you can speak directly?
Wait, wait. I have removed my earphones. Is it audible right now? Because I'm actually
It's
thinking
very
that
low. It's very low, Rishan. We are not able to hear you properly.
what happened today.
Can you try to disconnect and join again? It would be
Yeah,
great
I'll
if
try. I'll
you,
try.
because it's very low and I mean we can hardly hear you. You can also try joining in. Okay, he has disconnected.
You can take your voice from mobile like the way you
Yeah,
used to do earlier.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Deepak, am I audible right now?
No, it's still the same. Rishan, can you try using your mobile for audio?
Yeah, we'll do that, bro. I think that should.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better idea.
Am I audible?
Yeah, perfect. Please go ahead,
Oh,
Rishan.
okay, great. I'm audible right now also, correct?
Sorry.
Am I audible right now?
Yeah, it's better. It's still a little on the goofier side, but it we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, we have audience saying it's perfect. So yeah, please take it away, Rishan.
Okay. Yeah. Are you hearing an echo, bro?
Yeah, it is an echo a little bit.
Yeah. Wait. Mhm. Okay. I guess the echo is gone right now. Okay. Okay. Is
Yeah,
it
it's
okay?
much better.
Yeah, we can continue. Okay, great.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll share this screen. Okay, guys. I guess you can see the screen.
Yep.
Great. Guys, thank you for coming up. This is the last session that we hold for the Rust programming. I guess I was able to give you an insight on all the different topics that Rust has, and I believe that we have tried to discuss the fundamentals, the basics of all the sessions, and all the major topics that Rust has uphold for us. Okay, but the learning never stops, and you'll be now taught or being mentored by Deepak Chowdhury in the long term, where you'll be engaging in different projects, and that is when you'll be able to learn more, because when we apply, we tend to learn more. This used to be my case when I started with web development or even with IoT, different kinds of stacks. And when I started it, when I start to apply things, that's when we get to know like where we can do this, how we can debug, how we can go on with these things. Okay, so yeah, when you start applying, you'll start to see more and more errors, and when you try to solve them, that's how you become a master in this language or any other stack that is required. Okay, with that being said, let us dive into the final session of Rust. And today we'll be discussing some more interesting stuff, some more advanced stuffs. Okay, so today we are starting our session with a discussion regarding generics. The question is, what is generics? Okay, so as the name suggests, generic means generic data type. So just imagine if you want to add two numbers. Okay, when you want to add two numbers, you'll write a function fn add, and you'll have two parameters, x which is i32, y which is i32, which gives you a result which is also i32, right? But the issue with such kind of programming is basically that you cannot write one more function that takes parameters as float, because the a function with same name cannot be allowed in a programming language. So what will you do when you have to work with different data types? You might want to give a different name like add f, add I, and then you want to do all these things. Add I stands for add integers, add f stands for what, add float, etc., etc. Now this is actually a hectic task to do, right? So we want a generic function that can actually encompass all of these things together. How can we do that? And Rust offers generic data types to do so. Or a good example would be considering string concatenation and addition. So if you use the addition operator in most of the language, not in the case of Rust, but in most of the languages, if you use the addition operator, you can add two integers, you can add two floating point numbers, and in the same way, you can concatenate two strings. Okay. So now you can see the add operator can do two or three operations at the same time. So it uses generic data type implementation, right? So in a similar way, a generic functions allow us to reduce code duplication, where it can be used to create definitions for a function or signature or struct, which we can then use for a many different concrete data types. Okay. Now, when defining a function that uses generics, we place the generic in the signature. So what we want to change, we don't want to change the process. We don't want to change the function name also. We want to change the parameter data types. Okay. Now, a simple case is actually discussed here. Like say, if you want to find the largest in a vector of numbers or characters, we can define a simple function or a single function using the uh, generics. You see, the simplest way of creating the largest for i32 would be a similar approach that you see on the screen right now. I create a function largest of i32, which is a list, which is taking a list of i32, and then it starts to find the largest element. Okay, you might know how to find the largest element in a list. That's a logic that has been applied, but you cannot use this function to particularly find the largest character in an array of characters. Okay, so how can you also encompass that function into this particular function? What if I change my function to fn largest t? This t refers to a generic type. Now, it is not mandatory that you should refer it as t. You can refer it as any alphabet in English. Okay. So you can use T, G, U, anything as you wish. So T actually denotes the generic data type. That means it can take any kind of data type. Now fn largest T, and you're taking list and T. That means a list of any type T. It could be a list of float, it could be a list of integers, it could be a list of string, it could be a list of characters, anything. It could be a list of struct. Okay. Now let mute largest was initially the setting the initial value as the largest one, and then we iterate and then we find the largest element. Okay, simple logic. So in generic function, it allows us to pass a list of any different kinds of data type to get the right output at each and every time. So what does it do? It basically allows us to have reduced amount of code. Okay, but usually, you know, a simple operation cannot be always done for every data type. It could be wrong in the case of different data. For example, in case of addition, I can encompass the idea of concatenation and normal integer addition or float addition. Okay, but what if I am going to write a function for subtraction? Then if I write a general function for subtraction, I shouldn't be able to pass some like string or characters, etc. Because you are not supposed to subtract characters or strings, right? So I think the idea is getting to you. So basically, generics doesn't mean that you can write a function and then pass every data type into the function. It needs to follow the basic idea and the rule, so that sometimes you want to implement the different trait or a different trait for each generic data type. And that is why when you actually try to create such a function, it would give you an error, because you cannot always compare every data type using the greater than symbol. Like say if you have two structs, okay, and you cannot compare like using the greater than symbol, you cannot compare the two different struct, right? Now then you need to implement the partial order trait in order to actually work with such kind of data types. Okay, so while you use generics, we need to be careful, because we need to think in a way such that it will take different kinds of data types. Now, this is one another implementation while we work with structs, because you can actually use a struct which takes the data type t. So each of its variable can be given the same data type. Now the use case is, as you can see in fn main, I have created let integer equal to point x5 and y10. Now if you see closely, you can see that x and y are of both the same data type. Now, the use case of this is, I do not want to create two structs, each for like the first one for integer and the second one for float, the third one for string. I do not have to do it. This struct can actually create a point using integers, float, string, character, anything. So I can pass any data type for x and y, considering the rule that both x and y should be of the same data type t. So if I am going to pass a string for x, I need to make sure that y should be also a string. So that is the idea that we need to keep in mind. Okay. I think, yeah, that's all about the struct. Now, in the case of structs, I'm not sure, but when you work with code bases, you can see a lot of use cases with different kinds of generics, because we don't want to duplicate the code. Like we don't want to create struct integer, struct float, struct. It's a very hectic task to do these things. So we have simpler methods. Okay. Now, if you concentrate into, if you actually do the comparison with Python, then Python usually takes everything of like does not ask the data type, right? So if you specify fn add a comma b, then a and b could be of any different data type in Python. So it's dynamic, but you can do that with statically typed languages, because it will affect their entire performance in case because in Python, they actually do have an interpreted way of execution, whereas in Rust, in C++, we do not actually implement such kind of a execution. So we want things to be identified during compilation. Right. Now, yeah, this is the basic idea. But if we want different data types for x and y, then you can refer it as u. But make sure that you actually add it to the struct header. You want to specify what are the 2 or 3 different data types that you are using for each of its elements initially at the struct definition. Okay, that is what we have done here. And yeah, from all these things, like basic things that we have discussed till now regarding generics, the idea is we can reduce the amount of code, and it is really useful. And generics actually does not increase the execution time, they actually save you more space. Okay, so with that idea, I think we can start today's first poll. Wait. Deepak, Are you actually seeing the polls or is it me? Like I don't see an option to send polls.
Okay, just one second. Deepak, can you just make him co-host? I think he may not be co-host. We'll sort it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, can you try now?
Action disable hide.
Okay, no problem. Let me just launch the first one.
Yeah,
Uh,
that will be fine.
can you now see the poll? Listen.
Yeah, bro. I can see the.
Yeah, can you read the question and the options like we
Yeah,
did?
sure. So the first question is, what is the difference between using a trait bound and a type bound constraint in Rust? Okay. The option is a trait bound specifies the type that is being used, while a type parameter constraint specifies the behavior of the type. The second option is a trait bound specifies the behavior of the type, while a type parameter constraint specifies the type that is being used. There is no difference as there are two different types or ways of specifying the same thing. The option 4 is trait bounds are used for struct, while the type parameter constraints are used for functions. The second question is, which of the following is not a way to use generics in Rust? First option is defining a function that takes a generic type as a parameter. Second option is defining a struct that can hold any type of data. And third option is defining a trait that can be implemented by multiple types. And the fourth option is defining an enum that can hold any type of value. It's around 2 minutes, so I will end the quiz.
Are you able to see the end poll option?
Wait, I can see it in my mobile, bro.
Ah, okay. So maybe because of two accounts, it might have restricted it to one.
Got it, got it. So guys, I'll share the results with you. I think you can hear me as well. Right. So yeah, the first question, what is the difference between using a trait bound and a type parameter constraint in Rust? Wait, I will just, yeah. Yeah, the first option was the right one. That is, the trait bound specifies the behavior of the type, while a type parameter constraint specifies the type that is being used. See, the idea is basically a trait bound is something that we actually use in a trait. The main idea is actually to work with generics. Okay, so a trait bound actually specifies the behavior of the type. As you might have seen, we initially need to specify the data type that a struct takes, okay, in order to place the data type against each of the value, right? So that is what a trait bound is. In case of, we will also use it in case of a trait implementation. Okay, in case of IMPL trait, we need to specify the data type initially. Okay, so that is what a trait bound is, and it specifies the behavior of the type, while a type parameter constraint specifies the type that is being used. The next question was, which of the following is not a way to use generics in Rust? The correct answer is defining an enum that can hold any type of value. Okay, I think it's clear. I'll just stop sharing the answers. Okay. Hmm. Guys, we'll continue. See, now we'll discuss generics in enums. So as you have seen, generics in structs is similar to what generics in enums would be also. You just need to specify the data type inside the header. And then we start to work on, like, we have two different types. In enum option, we have two different types, that is sum and none. In this case, when you have a value, you will have a value of data type t. If you do not have a value, then you will have none. That's the idea. Okay. Now, we can express the abstract concept of an optional value, and because option t is generic, we can use this as abstraction. Okay. So this is similar to what we'd actually work with struct. There is no need of any confusion. It's just the same. And it is also the similar stuff with the result. So it is also one enum that we have discussed in the previous session. Okay. Now, see, generic methods. How we will try to implement a generic method. Now, when you create a struct, we can actually create the corresponding functions in the IMPL method. That is what we discussed in the previous sessions. Now, we'll see how you will create a generic function for a struct point t, where x and y both have the data types t. See, IMPL t point t. Now, what is this IMPL t? IMPL t means you are going to define an implementation for the struct point whose data type, only preferable data type is t, and it is of the data type t. So you need to specify the data type or the generic data type that you are going to use in the struct before the struct name in case of an implementation. Okay, it is how Rust actually takes into consideration of generic method implementation. I think the idea is clear. So it's just a notation and it's a notion of doing things. Okay, because there is some importance in case of the compilation as well, because the implementation actually knows beforehand that it is going to take the type t. Now, as you can see, the function x takes and self. What is and self? And self is taking a particular reference to the object, and then it returns an and t. And t means it is sending back a reference of an object of data type t. So it takes the object and it gives you the data type t. So what it does is basically and self dot x. Now if you see, self dot x is of the data type t. So this function is valid and it is present inside the IMPL. So you can call this function, like once you create an object, like say struct p is equal to point and you give them value for both x and y, then you can actually call this x function as p dot x. Now what p dot x does, p dot x will fetch you the data that is being present inside the struct for the corresponding parameter x. Okay, so that is the idea that has been shown in the slide. Now the basic question regarding generics is, usually it causes a performance deterioration because you are only supposed to know the data type at time of execution. That is the general idea that we have when you use generics. But that is not the case with Rust, because Rust generics won't make your code run slower, because it accomplishes this by using monomorphization. It's a method that it uses. What it does is it turns your generic code into specific code by filling the concrete types that are used when compiled. Now, how is this possible? Because once you define a struct, you would also specify a data type against the corresponding object created in the code. Okay, see, you are not going to fill it during the execution time. Now, what it does is the Rust compiler would obviously fill it with the required concrete type during compilation. So in turn, generics won't cause any performance issue during execution. And this is one of the major impacts of the language, because even though it supports generic data types, it does not cause a performance issue. Whereas most other languages does not allow you to have a generic data type. Some other languages allow you to have a dynamic data type specification, whereas it makes the entire program run slower. Okay. So this is replacing of generics into concrete type that happens during compile time, and hence there is no runtime cost. Okay. Now we'll talk about this by launching the next code. I guess I need to pull it from launch the generic quiz 2. I think everyone can see the question. No. Can you see the questions?
No, let me. Do you want me to launch it?
Yeah, please launch it for me, please. I don't think I can do this with mobile.
All right.
So guys, yeah, your time starts now and you'll be given around 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer. I'll read out the questions for you. The questions were, which of the following is not a benefit of using Rust? Okay, using generics in Rust. And the options are improved code reusability, stronger type checking, reduced code duplication, and increased runtime performance. The second question is, what is the syntax for declaring a generic type parameter in Rust? Okay, the options are T enclosed in greater than and lesser than similar to HTML tag, and then you have a square bracket and T, and then you have a parenthesis and T inside, and then you have a set bracket and T inside. So these are, I think, should be very easy for you guys to find out the answers because we have discussed these topics right now. Okay. It's around 1 minute. I think more people need to participate. So guys, yeah, it's around 1:37. So I'll just stop the quiz. I'll share the results with you. Okay. So I guess everyone can see the right answers to the question. The first question was, which of the following is not a benefit of using generics in Rust? And yeah, the options, the right option was good. I can't see the right option. So the correct answer is increased runtime performance. The second question, I think most of you got it right, was so simple, was the T which is contained in the HTML kind of tag. Okay, so that is the idea. I think this should be simple, and we'll continue. Yes, this is the next important thing that we need to discuss. This is something related to the object-oriented programming. That is a trait. Now, when the word trait comes into your mind, what is the initial thing that strikes your mind? Trait means a certain kind of behavior, right? Now, traits are actually a particular kind of implementation that you can create in order to be used in different struct implementation. That means, as you have done right now, creating a generic function would save you more time and also would save you more space in creating a single function that can handle different scenarios. Traits are used to create a common set of functions that can be implemented by different structs. Okay. So traits are used to define a shared behavior in an abstract way. You might have seen such scenarios or such implementations in different languages like Java, where you might be using interfaces or abstract classes, etc., where you want to have a particular set of functionalities that can be then extended to different class. Okay. Now, the idea is you create a pub trait summary where you are actually going to pass a function, summarize, and string. Now I have only defined the I have only declared the function here. Now I can use this trait to implement a function for any different data type or any different struct that is required. Okay. Now imagine you have a certain set of functions or characteristics for a particular entity, and you want to also implement this to the other entity. Let's consider a simple example. Let's say you have two actors or two people in the environment that we consider. It could be a teacher and it could be a student. Okay. Now, in order to retrieve their name and details, why we want to write two functions? Like say there will be a similar data including the name, age, address, etc. Right? So I can write an IMPL student and then write a function retrieve details and then type the definition like return student dot name dot details dot everything. And I can do the same with the teacher also. I can create the teacher's IMPL and then define a function, return details, and then why doing all these things when you can actually put the return details into a particular trait and then implement that trait for the particular class. So that what happens is you can bring all these related functions in an encapsulated way called a trait, and you can implement the trait for different structs. So that is the general idea of using trait. Now we will go into see how we will work with different kinds of traits. Okay. So yeah, here we only declare if you are familiar with Java, then you might got the idea of okay interfaces. Similar implementation would be traits. Okay, here we declare a trait name summary and with a method declaration. So we only declare because we want to have different implementations for the same function in different structures. Let's say in case of teachers, you might want to have some more details rather than the students, or vice versa. So you can use the same function definition, but you can add different things when you implement it for the different entity. Okay. Now this is how it can be implemented for any strike. I think we, yeah. So usually now, as you can see in the screen, there is a lib.rs. Now, what is lib.rs? This might be the first time you will be hearing a lib.rs. So lib.rs means a library, a file that you would use to create your definitions and all those things, so that this particular file can then be used as a package in the required main.rs. Okay. So the idea is to create all the definitions in a file and then use it in the main.rs, so that your main.rs function would be neat. Okay, so it would only contain the required definitions. It's like the use statement. You can use the use statement to access everything that has been written on the lib file. The lib files, mostly when we talk about different kinds of IMPL, creating structs, we actually do not want to use or create all these things into the main function or the main file. We will just create subfiles. We will implement them in the subfiles, and then we will call and use them only in the main.rs, and that is the neat way of programming. Okay, so this is how we actually do. We do abstract news article, and we are creating a simple struct. And then we are going to IMPL the summary for news article. As you see, I have created a trait summary. Now IMPL summary for news article. What I am doing, I'm just FN summarize and self string. So now I have given a definition to the declaration this summarize, right? So summarize has been a declaration in the trait summary. So when I am implementing it in the news article struct, I'm actually giving it a particular definition that is only staying inside this IMPL for news article. Now you can use the summarize function implementation in the other struct also. If you want to take another example for tweet, you can also implement it for tweet. Now the idea is the question is why we need to actually do such kind of like why are we even creating a trait at the end of the day, because we anyway we need to implement it for each of the struct, right? So the idea is to group things of similar patterns. And the question would be like, why you want to uh, like classify these implementations into a particular file and the other kind of definitions into a different file, and why only the execution part is placed in the main file. So it's like we can categorize, and it is easy to work with, it's easy to debug, and it is easy to change a common characteristic or behavior because you only want to change it in a single implementation if required. Okay. So that is the idea of having traits. I think you got an idea of traits. Now that is it. Now we have implemented the trait on news article, and if you see, both of them have a different uh, definition. Here what we do is format is being used in order to combine self.headline, self.author, and self.location. Whereas here, in case of tweet, what we do is we are formatting and combining a self.username and self.content only. So the same trait function is being used or given two different implementations in two different places. Okay. This is now while you want to actually call or use these kinds of implementations in the main, you will use the use command to actually get them into the main.rs. Okay. And then we create a tweet, this tweet struct, and username is being given, content is being added, and we give some of the details that needs to be placed inside the struct, and then you can use the tweet dot summarize. So this is how you would call the function. It is similar to what we have discussed in the last session. Once you have defined a function, now it is very easy for us to call it in the main function. And keep the idea in your mind that when we want to define or specify the structs, their implementations, the traits regarding a particular struct, we would always try to categorize all these things into a particular file called lib.rs. So when you scale your code, or when you are actually working with your code, then obviously you'd be seeing these kind of implementations. I hope so. Yeah, with that, we will discuss another quiz time regarding traits. So Deepak, can you please just also do that poll for me?
Done.
Yeah, thank you. So the question is which of the following is true about the copy trait in Rust? Okay. The first option is the copy trait is used to specify that a type has a fixed size at compile time. The second option is the copy trait is used to specify that a type is mutable. The third one is the copy trait is used to specify that a type can be copied. The fourth one is the copy trait is used to specify that a type implements the clone trait. Okay. Now, the second question was, what is the purpose of debug trait in Rust? It allows types to be formatted for display to the user, to allow types to be compared for equality, to allow types to be sorted, to allow types to be serialized and deserialized. I think the quizzes are a bit confusing, and I think it is required. Like, this is the last session, so I want you to think more and then answer to these questions. Okay, I'll give you a time around 150. So yeah, you can take your time and give the answers. Okay, guys, I think the time's up. It's around 150. So I think I'll end the board. Okay, so I think I can now do it with my system. Great. Yeah, I'll share the results with you. Okay, the first question was, which of the following is true about the copy trait in Rust? And the answer is the copy trait is used to specify that a type can be copied by value without affecting the original. Okay, so that is it. We have discussed about the copy trait a lot of times from the second session as well. So you might be knowing that copy trait is used to specify that it can be copied by value, and strings have not implemented this kind of data type. So that is why we use the references in order to work with strings. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of debug trait in Rust? That was the second question. The second question's answer is to allow types to be formatted for display result. Great. I think most of you have got the answer right, because we have been using the debug trait for a long period of time when we want to print a struct, when we want to print a vector, we want to print an array, etc., etc. So I'll stop sharing. I will continue. Now, see, whenever we have a trait, you can also have a default implementation. So those who know Java, they will think, okay, I've got the idea. The basic idea is this is interface, and you can have an implementation, or you do not want an implementation. So default implementation is just the idea that you can add a default implementation if required. See, initially when we were using the trait, in the previous example, we never gave a particular definition to the trait, right? We never gave a definition to the trait. We only defined it when we actually took an IMPL from the given struct into two different implementations. But here, what if we need to add a default implementation? What if for both the different structs, when you implement this function, the output needs to be the same? Okay, let's say I'm going to create a function, and I have two structs, student and teacher, and then I want to create a function greet. So according to the time, let's say the parameter is time, and if the time is between 6 or 9 to 12, then I want to send a message, greetings like good morning, and afternoon I want to do the same, and in the evening and night also I want to do the same. Now, does this function implementation differ for both student and teacher? It's the same, right? So the idea is simple. If you want to give a default implementation and you do not want to change it, or do not want to implement it differently for each of the structs, then you can include it as a default implementation while you define the trait function. Okay, so you can also add a default definition to the function that is placed in the trait. I think the idea was clear when I took the example, and when you start implementing, you will get an idea of why using traits, and so it's all about practice, and we move on to more and more practice. You'll get an idea. So this is the basic idea. Like, you can define and you can add a default implementation as well. Now we will discuss about traits as parameters. Okay. So we use traits to define functions that accept many different types. And now we will use pub function node. You can see the example that here I'm going to take item and I'm going to pass trait as a parameter to a particular function. And what I'm doing, so I pass a trait as a particular function, and then I'm going to use it in order to call the trait function. Okay, so you can do in a similar way too. Like, if you want to take a particular implementation inside a function and you want to manipulate things inside that function, and you can actually use it by passing the trait as a parameter. Okay, so these are things that are possible. This is just for you to know that, okay, this can be done. Might not be useful every time, but in case of some implementations, like in case of some definitions, you might want to use the traits as parameters. Mostly we might not, but in general cases, it's better to learn all these kinds of possibilities that you have when you work with a language. Okay, so and IMPL summary, so you can actually pass a trait as a parameter, and then it can be called as a function, similar to what we did with the main function. We created and we called it as a. So see, the previous implementation, what we did was we actually passed it and then we called it in the main function. Now we can use it in any other function possible with such an implementation. Okay, so this parameter accepts any try that implements the specified trait, and in the body of notify we can call any methods on the item that come with the summary trait. So that is the idea. Okay, now returning types. So this is similar to, if we can take a trait as an parameter, then you can also return it, right? So returning types that implements the trait. So in the previous, we wanted to take any of the data type that actually implements this particular trait, and in here we want to return the types that implements the trait. So what we do here is we create an fn return summarizable. We just want to return the IMBL summary. So IMBL summary here means the data type. That means we are referring to the trait function. Okay. Now what we are trying to do is we want to return tweet, and we are returning a struct. Okay. So that is what we do. We want to return that type which implements the particular trait. Now you know that tweet has already implemented the trait summary. So now the tweet's corresponding object instantiation can be returned. That is what you see here. I am going to just return a particular tweet object for when you call the return summarizable function. Okay. So I think the idea is clear. In this one, we will take traits as parameters. That is a function that would only accept those types which has implemented the trait parameter. Trait. Okay. So it will be only taking those data types as parameter who has implemented the given trait. And in here, we would only return those types that implement the given trait. So a type in the consideration would be tweet, where tweet has implemented the summary trait, and so it can be returned. Okay, so the idea, I guess it is clear. It's basically the types that have implemented the given traits. Now that is what we were talking about in this one also. Okay, I think it's time for the last quiz. Wait, I don't see a fifth quiz here. I think all the quizzes have come to an end. No, it should be some mistake on this side. So that was all about today's session. We have discussed two important things, that is the traits and also generics. Both generics and traits comes into consideration when you want to reduce the amount of code that is required to be done. Okay, and these things makes it more easier for us to organize the functions or different kinds of behaviors, different kinds of data types into a single entity, so that it can be implemented for different. In a similar way, when generics was used to create a single function which takes different data types into consideration, traits were used to classify a common behavior into a single capsule so that it can be implemented for different entities in a different way. Okay, so I think you got an idea regarding both of these things. That's what we had for today, and with this we are concluding the introduction to Rust programming session, and we will go to the questions from now. I think Deepak, you can continue.
Oh, fantastic, Roshan. What a journey, guys. Let's press those claps in the reactions to appreciate what Roshan has done in the past weeks. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of time, a lot of effort in the back end. You're seeing 1.5, 2 hour session here, but it takes hours of preparation beforehand to make sure that you get the best output in these in this limited time space. So, Rachin, many congratulations to you for completing yet another IBC CEP's Rust technical, foundational, and uh, expert session delivery. So, thank you so much. So, guys, as promised and as discussed earlier, yeah, we have Bandapali Hariharan saying thanks for educating us, sir. Uh, Rachin, that's obviously for you. And yeah, so as promised, guys, we are now open to questions. Uh, uh, the next part of this session is basically dedicated to the fact that if you have any technical queries regarding Rust, please put your queries in the Q&A section in chat, whatever it may be. But be as specific as possible. We will discuss it. We'll dedicate you enough time to talk about the same. It could be regarding this session. It could be regarding previous sessions. So please let the queries come in. If whatever questions you might have, we will address all of them. So yeah, keep the questions coming. I'll open the floor for next couple of minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, to ensure all of you put your questions there and we will address it one by one. And by the time we do that, I would, if Praveen sir is here, I see he's here. I hope he's not occupied with something. So Praveen sir, if you can hear me, would love to hear a couple of words uh, as we complete one prominent part of the IBC CEP Module 2, which is technical sessions on Rust.
Yeah, I have been.
Sorry, sir. Sir, I think there was a confusion on the poll side. So we have one poll for like last poll. We haven't launched it yet. Can we do that now?
Please finish it and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me just launch this poll. Rishan, as always, let's just get it done and then maybe we'll move on to the next chapter. Let me just launch this. Yep, it's right in front of you.
So, yeah, I think we got the last question, guys. Okay, so which of the following is true about traits in Rust? The option is traits are used to define the behavior of a type. Traits are used to allocate memory for a type. Traits are used to declare variables of a certain type, and traits are used to cast between types. Second question is what is the purpose of default keyword in Rust trait definitions? To specify a default implementation for a trait method, to prevent a trait method from being implemented by a struct, to specify a default type for a trait, or to specify a default visibility for a trait. I think we'll be on 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay, I think we will give you 1 minute and 50 seconds. So take your time and do it. Yeah, guys, I think the time's up. I'll just end the poll. I'll share the results with you. So the first question was which of the following is true about traits in Rust? Correct answer is traits are used to define the behavior of a type. Okay, 66% got it right. Great. Second question, what is the purpose of the default keyword in Rust trait definitions? And 47 says that it is to specify a default implementation for a trait method. And yeah, everybody, like around 47% got it right. It is the answer. That is, a trait is being used to give a specific default implementation for a trait method. And that is why we use a default keyword. Okay, guys, I think the quiz questions are clear as well. So we'll go back to the book.
Yeah, Rishan, thank you so much. So we have another appreciation message coming from Anjali Pandey. Thank you for the wonderful session, sir. Rishan, once again, thanks to you. All right. So Devansh is saying, sir, it is not a technical question, but I'm looking for a team and I have been unable to find one till now. That's all right, Devansh. We have Discord and obviously our WhatsApp group. So I would suggest everyone to just go, and if you are looking for a team or if you are looking for a member, just put your message in the WhatsApp group, and then I'm sure someone or the other will reach out to you, or we will handle it from our end to make sure that you are part of it. All right. So we have a question from Lakshay Sharma. Rishan, I would like you to take it. I know you are typing in the answer personally, but I would also like you to take it for our public. The question is basically, can you suggest any project that I should do to master Rust?
Okay. So yeah, I was actually typing the answer. So basically, when you start with a project, I would suggest that you should do the initial project that is given in the Rust book. Okay. The Rust book project is to create a single threaded server. And then you will also have a multi-threaded server. Now, I would suggest you start with that project because it will give you an entire idea of how Rust actually can be implemented for a HTTP server in case of networking. Now that will give you an entire idea of like how to implement the things that we have learned and we have discussed in the class. And there are certain things that we have not discussed in the class, which include some of the high level or advanced concept like lifetimes, and different other kinds, how to test the code, how to use different features of the cargo.toml, etc., etc. So we might not be able to cover all these things in the session, but as you go on, when you try to work with the project like a multi-threaded or a single-threaded server, then obviously you should have to learn it, and you will also learn it. So I would suggest you start with the Rust book classic definition, because you have the code there, but I wouldn't suggest you to just copy it, but try by yourself, and if not possible then learn it, because at the end of the day we are anywhere learning the topic, right? So that is more important. That is the suggestion that I would have for you.
Yep, Rishit, thank you so much. Uh, all right, so I have a question from anonymous attendee. I have good skills in cybersecurity, pen testing. I think that basically means penetration testing. Can I have future in blockchain with my previous knowledge in pen test? So, guys, try to be specific with respect to your the Rust sessions. But I mean, we'll definitely take up this question. But be specific on what you have learned and what you're facing challenge with respect to the sessions here. All of these questions can be taken up on WhatsApp, Discord. I mean, try to utilize this time to focus on getting maximum out of what you have learned and what you can do better in your life. Rishan, you want to take that?
Yeah, I will give him an answer, but see, I'm not really a good expert with cybersecurity, but I do have friends who actually work in cybersecurity. So the idea is, I haven't seen Rust being used in cybersecurity, but there is a good implementation of Rust being used in blockchain. I can relate both of these fields, so it's not up to my knowledge. Anyway, you can have a better future in blockchain if you choose Rust, because most of the blockchain fields are actually implementing Rust, including Solana, Polkadot, major big firms out there. So you can have a good future if you take Rust, and you can also have a good future if you take Rust, because Rust is being diversified into different fields, not only blockchain. It is being used in operating system programming and in networking. They have been using it for a lot, and even in trading platforms they use it to implement back-end services, and it's considered safe. So in your terms, considered safe might not be the right word, because in cybersecurity and pen testing, considered safe is not what we call considered safe. So the consideration of safe in Rust means it is compilation safe. So it's basically you won't have any kind of memory errors usually in execution, and it would more not be the same with creating defense structures in case of cybersecurity. So I'm not sure whether I can answer the question to the expectation that you have. I think Deepak Chaudhary or any other expert could be able to answer that question.
Yeah, but I think that was quite pointed out and helpful, Rishan. Thank you so much. Praveen, sir, you want to add anything to that?
So yeah, that's a very interesting question, by the way. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So see, security has been one of the key, foundation for blockchain, as all of you know. Blockchain is heavily dependent on cryptography. That also you should appreciate. Encryption mechanism, hashing, and all of these things are pretty important for blockchain. So, in my opinion, having a deep understanding of cybersecurity related concepts will definitely help you, grow in blockchain. And I think, in my opinion, this is one of the key skills. And especially if you are trying to work on the blockchain, blockchain protocol level stuff, for example, right? If you are working on some business application, for example, DeFi application or NFT based metaverses, etc., then I think, of course, you will be using the security aspects to a limited extent. But if, for example, you are working on a blockchain protocol, you are defining the consensus mechanism. If you are defining, the base of for example, transaction processing. So in those areas, this knowledge will be extremely helpful, right? And also, if you understand cybersecurity, then of course you will be understanding cryptography to a large extent. In fact, in Alt Hack Delhi, we had covered cryptography to a large extent, in the program. So yeah, so that's very interesting point. Yeah, Deepak.
Yep, thank you so much. So, to summarize what Krishan and Praveen sir has said is basically that, I mean, you can do anything. It's basically depends on you at what level you can execute certain elements of Rust and use blockchain technology and then integrate the same, or use already existing blockchain technologies which use Rust and enhance the cybersecurity aspect. I mean, I think blockchain is going to be quintessential in all of these fields, especially AI and cybersecurity, of course, because of the security factor. Like Rishan mentioned, the security has a different aspect here. But then, yeah, I think that should give you a lot of context into where exactly we stand as of now and how what you can achieve. But I think effort will have to be put and research will have to be done from your end, and I think Rust is going to be a good helping hand for you in the process. All right, so we have a question from Vaishnavi Kumari, which our colleague Deepak Chaudhary has already answered, but let me just put it out. Vaishnavi asks, as we implement concepts of DSA using other languages, so can we do same with Rust? Question mark. Followed by another question which says, as what we do by Rust up to just is basic, but what can be implemented at application level? Can you explain a bit, please? I hope you understood the question. If not, then you can just read it in the Q&A session.
Yeah, can I ask? Can I discuss about that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I want to thank Praveen sir, because he has given you a good explanation regarding the previous question. So he's really experienced, and so he can come up with an good idea regarding. I think that has answered the question to the anonymous attendee, because he has thanked both me and sir. Okay, really great. And yeah, Vaishnavi was asking, Vaishnavi, right? Vaishnavi. So
Yeah.
question was asking regarding, can you use Rust in DSA? So that's the very interesting question. See, I just wanted to answer that question when you really asked it, because I really loved the question. See, the idea is I have tried, because when I learned Rust, I tried my best to use it in competitive programming and DSA, but it is not that easy to use it. As you might have seen, it requires more than 3 lines to take a user input using Rust, right? So Rust has got its peculiar use cases, but if you are a good fast typer and you understand all the core basic fundamentals with Rust, then you can use it for combi programming also. But I wouldn't suggest it. Why? There are actually 2 reasons. The first reason is, um, it is not at all easy as you might think, because first of all, ds is not very interesting for everyone, and if you choose to program it with Rust, then I think that it would be a hell. And the second thing is, to most platforms might not allow you to code with Rust. Even if you take, and lead code might allow it, and sometimes CodeChef might allow it, but the issue is, when you are preparing for your placements, their IDE might not be having Rust. See, most of the IDEs for each or the companies would have only language like Java, C, C++, and sometimes Python. So Python is also considered sometimes for most of the companies. Whereas if you take C++ or Java, then it is quite sure that you are going to get the compiler for it, and you can code it really well also. But the same time, Python has a lot of importance in the case of DSA as well. I would suggest you to do it with C++ rather than going for Rust in case of DSA, because Rust has got a lot more serious implementations rather than DSA. Because it would take you more time to code if you choose Rust for DSA. So I wouldn't suggest it, but yeah, if you're enthusiastic enough, then you should try it. That's what I have for.
Perfect, Rishan. Thank you so much. So, anonymous attendee says, thank you, Praveen sir and Rishan sir, for providing valuable information. Thank you, sir. All right. Let me see if we have any other queries. All right. So, guys, keeping the floor open for next couple of minutes. And while I do so, let me just share with you one QR code, which is of basically a Google form. And let me share it first, and then I'll give you the context. Yeah. So basically, scan this QR code, fill in the Google form, and this Google form will be used to address your query. So what we have basically asked here is for you to go and put your questions, and we will be able to address it. There's also a section here which asks if you would be interested in attending a separate session dedicated to Q&A, from what you have learned, and if you need further help. And that will depend on the kind of questions you have and the number of people who are ready to go for a separate session. So yeah, please go and fill in the form for us to understand better, and for us to know whether we want to organize a separate session on the same. Secondly, remember that if you have any questions, you are free to put it on our WhatsApp group. You're free to put it on the Discord server, right? So utilize these platforms for learning and engaging and to understand the subjects in a much better way. While we have this QR code on the screen, I am still requesting all of you to put your questions while we have Rishin here, Praveen sir here, and Deepak Chaudhary here to address them. Priyadarshini says, I can't open this QR code. I don't think that will be an issue because I've already tested it. Let me scan once again and see if it's working fine. All right, so it's working perfectly fine here, Priyadarshini. So maybe you want to zoom out and then scan the QR code, or sometimes it happens that you're just too zoomed in. Maybe that's why it doesn't work. I just tested it; it's working fine. All right. Let me see if you have any other question. Right. Oh, okay. So last 1 to 2 minutes, guys, open for you. How can I scan this QR code? Sir, so sorry, Priyadarshini, you can just open. If you're using an Android phone, then you can just go and use a camera and scan it. If you're using Apple, then you can, in the toggle of Apple, you'll see there's a QR option that pops up, which once you tap that, and you'll see the screen, which is just ready to scan a QR code. It's quite simple. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So last 30 seconds to 1 minute. If there are any questions, let us address it. Feel free to put it. And remember, please put and submit your questions in this technical query form. And remember to give in your answer whether you are open for a separate session for discuss to Q&A. Sir, I am also owning a team. All right. So Anjali, like I discussed, I think Devansh has put a message in the WhatsApp group. Please connect with Devansh, or I think others have also put in a message. So if any one of you is looking for a team or a member in the team, uh, so just put it out. You need to let people know, otherwise you won't be able to figure it out. So just discuss it. Just put a question in the team formation channel on Discord, or just put a query on WhatsApp group, and someone will definitely reach out to you because we have hundreds of students over there. We have, I think, over 500, 600 students, participants there. So someone or the other will definitely reach out to you for team formation. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions, Pramisa. If there's anything else you would want to add before we conclude this session.
So definitely, first of all, Rishin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with our young budding developers. So we do appreciate it, and I personally have listened to you, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. I do appreciate your depth in the subject. So very, very thankful to you, and many thanks on behalf of all of the of all of our fellow students. So thank you for that. Coming back to right now we are ending the Rust session today, but of course there is so much learning still remaining, which we will be covering and the exact plan will be known to you already, or if not, then, the IBC team will be coming back to you with the plans. Now, the important thing that I wanted to share here is basically the learning curve is very steep, and this takes time, right? This takes time, and once you understand Rust, the applicability of Rust is much diverse. It is not only in one programming, one blockchain. Even if you look at the Web3 world, even if you look at the blockchain world, Rust has got applicability in several blockchains, and especially the convertibility of into the WASM, the WebAssembly module, that really makes it ultra helpful in blockchain. Now we are talking with respect to blockchain context here, so that is what is more important. So we will be covering substrate based sessions. This will be owned by in-house expert from IBC Media, as well as there would be speakers coming from Polkadot. That's what we are trying to arrange. Beyond that, we will be having a good month's time in which you will be kind of building with IBC Media team some real application, right? Now you may gain a lot of clarity when you work on these real applications, and that will also be depending upon how exactly you do your work, that will also qualify you for internship certificate. But more than that, I think once you finish that and you get into the real building phase of your MVP of your product, there is a cycle for that, which Deepak Singh will be explaining to you when the time comes. But then there are more than these basic programming stuff that you will be using in Web3. And when I say that, then of course there are a lot of other things you may be required to kind of think about, such as the business applications, DeFi, metaverses, NFTs, the gamings, the real estate, real world assets in real estate, or other real world assets, for example. So there are so many things happening in the business side of the world that will, you will need to get familiarity into all of those areas. Then coming back to the Web3 technical stuff, there are a lot of things happening in terms of Ethereum, and in terms of other blockchains such as Polkadot, where you talk about latest inventions and breakthroughs happening, which really are very important to make the blockchain more user friendly. Such as there is a project which is implemented in Ethereum, which is called account abstraction, AA routine. This is called EIP 4337, which is very important. Like that, there are several other things such as oracles. Then you have got other infrastructural products, APIs, analytics, for example. How do you really analyze the data? There are several things which are happening in Web3 and blockchain. So what you are doing right now is very foundational, in my opinion. But some of you from this cohort, you will go to much higher level in terms of your proficiency in Web3, provided you are consistent, provided you take this journey as a challenge. And I challenge you here, whether you have something special in you which makes you continue your journey, right? I in fact do that. I feel very excited when I learn something new every day, and I have my own plans. Listen to what experts are saying in this field, and make your own strategy, and try to kind of work. I was reading somewhere, and I think I was talking to Deepak Singh sometime. You just go and do 0.99 to the power something, for example, a million. And if you do 1.01 to the power 1 million, and you see the difference, how much it really becomes, right? So the point is that it is very important for you to be consistent and slowly and progressively expand your expertise into all the areas that I talked about, right? That may take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But then along the journey, you will definitely be rewarded very handsomely. This world needs a lot of strong developers. This world needs people who understand, who are skilled. And I think try to be one of them. And then, of course, then you are doing justice to all the sessions that Rishin is doing. Deepak Singh is trying to, organize so much. Deepak Chaudhary is trying to do so many things. So that will be the true I would say, reciprocation to their effort. With all these things, I think, thank you, Rishin, once again for all your hard work and effort. Uh, you know, uh, congratulate all the people who have been consistent so far, and I encourage you to be consistent in the future also for some time, so that you will be gaining the most out of it. So Deepak Singh, that's pretty much from my side.
Absolutely. All right. So I've just dropped a message on WhatsApp and I'll reiterate it here also. So if you guys are any one of you who's looking for a team and reaching out to others and are getting in conversations in personal chats or via phone calls or anything. So just remember that you have to be very respectful and extremely professional. You have to be very sophisticated in the manner of speaking and in the executional context of it. Because if we get any complaints regarding you, we will surely be taking action. So be very respectful while reaching out to each other. Don't make a mockery out of yourself. And second thing is the aim of this entire process is to create a wonderful team. So also remember that your teammates should bring certain skills to the table. That could be project management, that could be design aspect, that could be coding aspect. So it's all your team should be able to manifest all of these things. Just because somebody is your friend is not the perfect parameter to just make a team. So yeah, with that, I wish you all the very best. And just remember that be very careful and be very respectful while reaching out to each other. Second thing is we have the assignments and quizzes for today. Let me just put those links in the chat for you to attend them. And as you know, assignment will be open until the start of next session, and quizzes will be open until midnight today. It was really wonderful to have such a great Q&A, and obviously, it is always great to have Rishan with us, who brings in so much on the table with his insights, with his learnings, and the best part of it all being that he is able to explain it to all of you so wonderfully. And we can't thank Rishan enough for that. So, yeah, with that, we come to the end of the Rust part of it, Rust part of the module 2 technical session. And we wish you all the best for what's coming ahead as the baton is being passed from Rishan R to Mr. Deepak Chaudhary here. All right, I have a query. Please share this on WhatsApp also. All right, so this is the quiz and assignment. Yeah, we'll be doing that definitely, Anjali. Okay, that would be all from our side. And before we leave, I would just like to give the floor to Rishin for the last final words for this part of IBC CEP. Rishin, if you have anything to add before we leave, would love to hear.
I think I'm audible. Okay.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to thank each and every one of the team that we are working so hard, to bring the contents and to show the demo, as well as to synchronize with the quiz and the assignments. Especially, I want to thank Praveen sir for his insightful thoughts, and he's really great person that I look forward to, because he brings up with new ideas and he know how to execute it as well. He's a really great person that you should be all inspired of. And then Deepak Singh, I don't have words for Deepak Singh because it's that guy who monitors and manages everything, right? And Deepak Chaudhary has been my mentor, and moreover, he organizes the things and asks me how to do each sessions to make sure that it should be short or it should be long. What are the questions that I should bring into the table so that the sessions become more interesting? So I just want to say that each and every one of the team actually tries to give you the best presentation as possible, and I think it had helped you, and it will help you in the journey that you are going forward in case of blockchain. So yeah, guys, I wish everyone the best, and I would like to thank the entire team for the completion of this session. That's all I've got, Deepak.
All right. Okay. So I think we are now getting a little teary-eyed at this part of the module, and it's not the right way to do things, Rishan. I mean, we are short of words to explain how far we have come, and it's just incredible experience having you with us, doing such wonderful work together. And obviously, thanks to Praveen sir and Chaudhary for making this happen with Rishan. All right, guys, that would be all from our side. Remember to complete your quizzes and assignments. You are doing wonderful in your polls. Just keep at it. Be active, participate, and have fun. Make new friends, create brilliant teams, ask questions, interact, chat, and discuss ideas. I mean, that's the best way to make utilize this entire IBC CEP program. You might not exactly. It's not necessary that you make something huge big in next 1 or 2 months, but if you keep at it, then definitely you will be anywhere possible. And I would like to just end with one quote: is that the only failure that you will ever face is for something that you don't ever start. Otherwise, if you start something and if you're working on something to end, then I think success will never be away from you. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a great night. See you all very soon, and all the best. Thank you.